Hi, Scott here today with Laurie on our Ask the Expert series. And the topic today is life transition. And one of the questions, Laurie, that I get asked a lot from my clients is, and it's more of a statement, quite honestly, it's when it comes to moving, it's just so daunting to think about moving. What do I do with all my stuff? And, it's a big life change for people that, especially that have been living in their homes for a long time. If you lived in your house for 20 years, you probably just haven't gone through all your stuff, right? I wanted to delve into that topic today, but I just wanted to see if you could maybe get started here with a little bit of an introduction about yourself and just how you got started in the business.
Sure. Well, thanks, Scott, very much for having me today. And I love sharing, any information I can to help clients, the transition from one move or one house to another or one place of living to another. I started my business back in 2013, and I've always had a passion for home decorating, design, renovations, that type of thing. And I also love helping seniors. So I got my certifications back in 2013. I became a Canadian staging professional and a decorator and a renovator and a senior move manager, all within a period of 6 months. And I've been helping people transition from one home to the next over the last 4+ years now. And again, I've always just had a passion with both helping people and obviously the home environment and improving the home environment.
Right.
So that's kind of the history of how I started the business or why I started the business and how long.
And that's what I find is like, when you're dealing with, people moving and their things, it's really personal.
It is. I say my job is more than a physical job of moving things or arranging things to be transitioned. It's more of helping people break the emotional connection with what they own, because that's probably more important than the actual removal of items or the moving of items. It's really taking a look in context, what we own, what's important to us, what if we assigned a little bit too much emotion to that maybe we shouldn't because the value is not there. So it's all about a value equation in terms of what we own, how much value it brings to our lives, whether that value can be transitioned to our next home or should it be transitioned to our next home. And if we're not going to get value from a specific item, where does that item go?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So to your question about, what do I do with all my stuff? Obviously the issue always comes when we're moving into a smaller environment, a smaller home environment. If we're moving to a larger one, that's not typically the issue because we have more space to put everything. But if we're moving into a smaller home environment, the first thing I always ask people is, are there family members, are there friends that want any of what you own? Have you asked the question, because clearly that's the easy question to have. And, sometimes friends and family do want specific items, especially if they've been in the family for years, if they're antiques, if they're into antiques. So that's the first and easy question to ask. The second thing I always ask clients is, do you have a charity that you like donating to? Because a lot of charities will accept household items, put them for sale up in their own locations, or will sell them and take the funds and put it back into the charity. So there's lots of worthy charities. There's lots of worthy organizations across Canada and the world that would accept items.
And I've seen some of them even pick them up before from the end of your driveway.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to help your community, your local community, is literally put the item at the end of your driveway with a free sign on it. And you'd be amazed how quickly it will go in the neighborhood, someone locally needs something, and that's one of the easiest ways to do that.
Right.
And obviously the last resort is to put anything into landfill. We always avoid that from an environmental perspective, also from a value perspective, bringing back value into your life. So it's always better to ask friends and family, look for a charitable cause, and then potentially put it at the end of your driveway. The last thing that people often ask me is, what if I try to sell it? And there's lots of online selling, sites that you can use to sell the item. There's a bit of a security concern, obviously, because people have to come to your house to see the item. So I always caution people to be careful about that. Thankfully, in the region that I'm in, which is Peel Region in Ontario, Peel Regional Police have set up a one location in Brampton for that exchange.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
You can actually bring your item. Hopefully it's not too big, or if it is big,
Right.
hopefully you have a truck that can bring it there, and
Right.
you can exchange in their parking lot, which helps
Right.
a lot of people from a security standpoint instead of having strangers come to your house.
Right.
And then the other question I often get is, what about consignment?
Right.
Consignment for large items is sometimes a good thing to do, but we have to be realistic as to what the item is worth. And
Right.
if it doesn't sell within a period of time, and it's typically 3 months, be
Mm-hmm.
ready to take the item back.
Okay.
So, often what happens is we think we're going to put it in consignment, we're going to get a huge amount of money for it, and then 3 months go by, they reduce the price over the 3 months,
Right.
and if that item doesn't sell, and guess what? You're responsible for going back to pick it up.
Oh, okay. Right. Right.
So,
So if it's a piano, you better be ready for
correct.
fruit. Yeah. Right.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. How do you find items can be valued? Like, especially with, people have been in their home for a long time. They've collected things over 20 years. And, one of the ones that I always get is like some of the items like the Royal Daltons or like, jewelry or things that, could have value. How does somebody that's thinking about making a move, figure out what kind of value is in those items?
Yeah. So the easiest way to get a value on an item now is through the internet.
Okay.
And you can do this for free.
Right.
Basically go to any website, selling site, and you can
Right.
pop in, the descriptor of what the item is.
Right.
And quickly, you'll start seeing the market value, because I guarantee you there'll be someone else in the world that will have something similar that you can automatically see what they're selling it for.
Right.
So that's free. That's no cost to the person. So I always encourage people, let's say you have a Yagyo figurine or Swarovski crystal figurine or some sort of jewelry, just go to like an eBay or Kijiji. Just take a look and see what everybody else is selling it for, and then you'll get an idea.
Right.
There are lots of appraisers, but obviously there's a cost associated with appraisers.
Right.
There are sometimes, antique road shows that people can bring items to get assessed. I mean, you've seen the classic TV shows where, people get, oh my gosh, it's worth $100,000, right?
Right.
But, the best and easiest way is just to do the free assessment online. Just take a look at various market internet sites and see what other people are selling the items for.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good one. Good. So, one of another client that I talked to recently, and I'll just give you a, word for word. I asked her what her biggest concern was in making a move, and she said, "I'm scared of the thought of packing up and selling our home. We've been here for 19 years. What happens if I don't like it in my new place?" What would you say to somebody who's just thinking about making a move there? They've lived in a place for so long, and it's really kind of overcoming the initial kind of barriers in somebody's mind to get moving on something like that.
Right. So I guess, from a realtor standpoint, and certainly from me and being a stager and a decorator, I always ask the question, why are you moving? What is the impetus for moving? Often it is, my children have left, the house is too big, or I want to move closer to my grandchildren. There's usually a reason why. There's a drive. Right? And understanding what that driver is important to understand why the transition is being made so that we can help with easing the transition,
Right.
The other point to make is, I always ask people, so what around your neighborhood are you used to? What amenities are you used to? Is there a mall within walking distance? Can you walk to your grocery store? Is it a 5-minute drive to your grocery store? What are you looking for from an amenity standpoint?
Right.
So where you're moving to, you probably want to try to get as much of those same amenities close by if that's important to you.
Right.
And then from the standpoint of the house itself, obviously, and again, most of what's happening right now is downsizing. People are going to smaller homes. I always tell people, if you're really unsure, you can always rent something for a period of time.
Right. Sure.
Necessarily have to buy right away. You can always rent something. The biggest transition typically is from a house to a condo. So I always say to people, well, why don't you try renting a condo for a year? Just put your stuff in storage, rent a condo for a year, and see if it's right for you. See if that lifestyle is right for you.
Right.
Also, there is a slight expense associated with that, but at least they can get a better sense of living in that environment, that size of environment, the location, the lifestyle, that type of thing. So, leasing or renting for a short period of time can be another option, right? Then see if that is the right transition or not.
Right, right. Yeah, very good, good. So when it comes to making a move, you know, some people are more organized than others, of course, you know. But if you had to put a plan in place for somebody that was thinking about selling their house, so that they could actually see, you know, what the start point would be and the end point would be, what kind of plan would you suggest for somebody to get started and to actually feel good about, you know, kind of knowing the path?
Well, you know, that path is going to be different for everybody. I wish I had, you know, like literally a set plan that I could give you and say it's going to work like this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right, yeah.
But everybody's going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. But I think the most important part of the plan is being proactive.
Right.
Now, even if you're thinking 2 to 5 years down the line, maybe it's 6 months to a year, start today. Just start today.
Right.
Start going throughout your entire house. Start looking for things that you no longer need. Start putting a pile together of things you want to donate or give to family. Start really thinking about, you know, if you're going to a smaller house or apartment or condo or whatever, you know, how much space are you going to have there? What would come with you? What's not going to probably make it? You know, start literally going through, you know, the attic, the garage, outside storage, you know, literally all the places that you have items that you haven't looked at for maybe 6 months, a year, 10 years, you know, and start diving into that. Because I'll tell people, you know, one of the biggest expenses of moving is moving items that really shouldn't be moved.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You know, so you're adding expense by physically moving items to a new location only to deal with them in the new location. If you do it proactively ahead of time, that's the best way to deal with it. That way you don't pay for the movers to pay, you know, to move all those items with you. And when you get there, you're ready for your location. And the transition is faster and easier as opposed to dealing with hundreds and hundreds of boxes.
Right.
You don't have the space for them. You don't know where to put them, you know, because of the issue. Like make that transition smooth to the new location, you know, as possible. But it really is, like I said, thinking through those things. How small am I going? Where am I going? You know, what come with me? What's not going to come with me? What do I do with what doesn't come with me? And addressing all those storage areas in the house that we haven't opened and looked at for you for maybe years. You know? Right.
So what advice would you give to somebody that is, you know, going through their things but getting stuck on actually, pitching things that need to go, or, you know, giving things away that they just can't get over the, you know, the emotional connection they have to things? What advice would you give to them?
So number one, my first principle I always say is what we call O-hi-O. Only handle it once.
Right.
Because if we start overthinking every single item that we're trying to dispose of, we'll never get the job done.
Right.
So wherever possible, take something into your hands, look at it, make a decision, try to make that decision as firm as possible, and then follow through on that decision. So if you're getting stuck, step back and really try to understand why are you getting stuck. Is it mental value? It's usually emotional value. Maybe it's, you know, a family heirloom or something that you received from someone who has passed on, no longer with you. Ask yourself the following question, you know, why am I getting stuck? And if it's, you know, like I said, that emotional connection, well, if I took a picture of it, if I took a video of it.
Oh, good idea.
If I kept a small piece of it, would that satisfy my need to have that item?
Right.
If, however, that item is in a box and shoved up in the attic, and it's been up there for 20 years, and in your new place, it's going to be shoved up in the attic for another 20 years, I would argue that I would ask the following question: does it truly add value in your life? If we want to honor someone and honor someone's memory, we should have it in our environment. We should see it every day. We should use it every day. We should have a touch point with it every day.
Right.
So then I try to challenge people to think, well, if I put it back in a box, am I really honoring the memory?
Sure.
And the other thing that we can do often to break that emotional connection is, certainly if a family member or friend wants it, it stays
Right.
in the family, great, then let it go. Let it go
Right.
and let the person enjoy it and honor that person's memory or whatever. But again, often what happens is taking a picture or a video or, doing something with
Oh,
that
great.
item
Yeah.
or donating it to, let's say, a charity that person would have
Yeah.
loved to have donated that item to, often helps break that emotional connection.
Right. Right.
But
Those are great.
it's not easy.
Yeah.
I will admit it's not easy,
Yeah.
but we try to be as objective as possible. And that's how I coach my clients. When we
Sure.
start stuck, let's kind of unstick the situation by thinking about it in a different way.
Sure. Sure. What I've found too is that particularly seniors clients, they can only go so fast, and you can't go faster than you can go, and if you try to, that's where things get stuck. So I always recommend that just go as fast as you can go. Don't try to do more than you can do, and if you get stuck on something, then go on to something else and come back to it later. And
Well, and to your point, Scott, for a senior client, the timeline for transition is extended. So again, if they're in a position where they're thinking about maybe going to a retirement home and it's 2 to 5 years or whatever, they're on a waiting list, let's say, for a specific location.
right.
It's really critically important that they start the process today because
Right.
to your point, they will take longer to assess items. They physically can't work as fast or think as fast as necessarily, a younger person can. So they
Right.
need that extra time to go through that process so that timeline gets extended,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right. Recently I had a client that they were in their early 50s, and she had some diagnosed hoarding. She was a diagnosed hoarder, and she knew that was the case, and that kind of presented some things going through the moving process that was learning for me. But any advice for somebody who knows they have a hoarding problem that they're having a hard time dealing with? Is there any advice or words of advice you can give for somebody like that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. I try my best to help.
Yeah.
If a person is willing and can afford and wants to seek professional help, that is always the best course of action, because through the process of therapy, they will uncover exactly what is causing the hoarding issue. And I'll give you a client example. I had a client who had asked me to help her clear out a spare bedroom in her condo.
Yeah.
She wanted her grandchildren to come over and stay over, and she was having issues. It was too cluttered and everything else. So I came over to her house. And when I did, I realized there were books everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. There were piles
Right.
of books piled up in the spare bedroom. In her bedroom, she had an entire wall of books. It basically looked like a massive library in someone's condo.
Right.
So I had to step back, and to say to her, well, no problem. We're here to assess and, address the problem that you asked me to, is organize a spare bedroom so that your grandchildren can come
Right.
over. But through the process of conversation, I asked her, I said, can you just let me know, what's your love of books? Why are there so many books here? And slowly through the conversation, it came out that when she was quite young, her father, unfortunately, was quite ill.
Right.
He had cancer. And every time there was a medical issue or, some, obviously bad feelings or whatever, the children are sent to the library
Right.
by the parents to get out of the situation so that they wouldn't see, obviously, all of the medical issues that her father was going through. So
Right.
she sought comfort in
Right.
books.
Okay.
And
Sure.
surrounded by books in a very, very traumatic situation in her life.
Right.
And that became a hoarding situation throughout the rest of her life because she could only live in an environment that was surrounded with books.
Right.
So for clients who are hoarders, there
Right.
is typically a root cause for the situation. And
Right.
again, I highly recommend through the process of therapy and discussion that they have that conversation, because the problem will just never correct itself.
Right.
Even if physically an environment is completely cleared out and they move to a new environment, that environment will quickly be filled again.
Right. Right.
If the problem is not identified.
Right.
Yeah.
My past client as well, like she ended up getting some help from the region of Halton, I believe. I think it was the region of Halton, but she did find a counselor that was willing to actually come out to her house and just kind of help her through the the emotional connection that she had to the things and kind of work through it. So at the end, it was harder for everybody because of the hoarding, the issues that she was carrying with her, but we did get through it, and it was successful in the end. But she knew she knew it was an issue that she had, and it was like, we were talking about it all the time, through the move. So it was like, something kind of forefront that wasn't hidden under the table. We were discussing it as we went, but.
And that's the best case scenario, Scott. If someone knows that they have an issue and they've identified it and accepted it and said, I need help, that is a much, much better scenario than someone who doesn't see the issue, doesn't want help, doesn't ask for help, doesn't want to hear any help being given to them. So,
yeah. Good. Switching gears just a little bit, for anybody that's thinking about making a life transition to make a move, or one of the things they need to do is get their house ready to sell and get it ready for the market. What are the top few things that you would recommend that somebody does to get their house ready to show? And I always kind of equate it to, shining your boots if you're going to go out on a date. You want to look your best, right? And getting your house looking the best. Any words of advice to somebody who's just thinking they need to do a bit of touch-ups and get a few things ready?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, first and foremost is decluttering. It is literally making your house as pristine as possible, ensuring that all clutter is completely removed from every single room. The second one is, believe it or not, depersonalization. So anything cultural, anything family related, personal photographs, religious artifacts, all have to be, again, taken away. So decluttering, depersonalization. The last thing, and equally as important, is maintenance.
Right.
So I always say to my clients, sweat the small stuff, and they look at me and like, no, you need to sweat the small stuff. Yeah. So if there's that bump in the wall, if there's that crack, if there's a chip in one of the tiles, guess what? Get that fixed. And the reason being is people notice the small things and then they wonder, well, if the small things haven't been dealt with, then the large things probably haven't been dealt with, like the furnace, like the roof, like the windows, like other bigger, more important items in the house. So sweat the small details, get all the maintenance done.
Right.
A fresh coat of paint everywhere is a wonderful thing.
Right.
Especially if it neutralizes some very strong colors as well.
Right.
It's just people think, oh, I hate builder's beige. Guess what? Everybody wants a builder's beige house, right? And that's the hardest conversation I have, is trying to tell people, no, we got to go back to builder's beige. We got to go back to neutrals and, white, gray, and beige. That's the way to go.
Right.
So that's kind of top line what I would recommend to basically all of my clients.
Right. And that's a coat of paint is the lowest cost renovation that you can do that makes the biggest impact.
For sure.
Just freshens everything up. Sometimes I find light fixtures can help too. Just, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get, kind of some contemporary low-cost light fixtures.
Well, more importantly, lighting, period. So light bulbs. So unfortunately, in this day and age, as we've transitioned to lower cost, more energy efficient light bulbs, which is great for the environment and great for energy efficiency and cost, people have converted to CFLs. So CFLs are the curly bulbs, but cast a really horrible, I want to say, blue light. It's a very depressing light. It's not a warm, what we call a warm white light.
Right.
The new LEDs are great because they come in a wide variety of colors, but those CFLs, those blue lights, do not do great in a home when you're trying to have a warm and inviting look to it. So the bulb is as equally as important as the fixture itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. So, during the the whole phase of moving, you know, it's important to find something that you like, a new home that suits you. But quite often I find when we're looking at homes and we're out home searching, we can't find what we're looking for, or, you know, the homes that we find that are in the right area with the right amenities, like everything's good about the home, but it needs a lot of work, you know, like it's dated, it's old, it needs a lot of work. Is there any advice you can give to somebody who's out home searching? They can't find exactly what they want, but they found something that that, you know, seems to meet a lot of the criteria, but it needs a reno. What kind of you know, what kind of renos do you see out there that that, you know, people are doing these days that that are making an impact for them?
Yeah. So number one, there will always be the greatest return on investment will be on kitchens. You know, clearly
Okay.
number one. And when I say kitchens, an appropriate kitchen for the type of house, for the price point of the house, for the area that the house is in, because again, we can all see gorgeous kitchens
Right.
on websites and internet
Right.
and everything else with granite countertops and marble floors.
Right. The
Well,
reality is a different thing. Yeah.
reality is a different thing.
Yeah.
A kitchen appropriate for the house, the style of the house,
Right.
and all of those other factors. But kitchens will always pay back
Right.
in terms of a long-term investment or even a short-term investment.
Right.
Secondly, bathrooms,
Right.
updating bathrooms. And bathrooms are really, versus kitchens, are actually a very cost-effective and very economical way to bring back value into your house. I mean,
Right.
bathroom fixtures are, you know, come in a wide variety of price ranges and, you know, materials and everything else. But very quickly, you can update a bathroom and it really makes a huge impact on your house.
Right.
Thirdly, you know, from an aesthetic standpoint, flooring. You know, we always say carpeting is not necessarily the preferred option in a house. A lot of people have allergies, have concerns about, you know, cleanliness and everything else. When you go into, you know, hardwood floors or even laminate floors and other types of flooring options, depending on, again, your lifestyle, the size of the house, the type of house, the price point, the location, all of those things.
Right.
But upgrading your flooring will always give you a good return on an investment and really help, you know, improve the equity of your house.
Right.
But that, you know, again, is from an aesthetic standpoint. You know, number one, windows and doors, furnaces, and all electrical, you know, like, water heaters and all of that, all of the mechanics of the house, and clearly roofs are
Right.
probably the most important big ticket items in any house. You know, if
Right.
those have to be addressed, those should be addressed first, because a house is only going to be sound if those three items are sound. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, so when it comes to you know, finding a house that you know, meets everything, but it needs a reno, where does somebody start with that?
Well, they contact me.
Okay. All right. Good.
Because I do renovation project management as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously the first and most important thing is identifying what the project is,
Right.
trying to set aside a budget, a realistic budget for it. And, you know, you can do that by going online, taking a look at other projects and trying to assess what it's going to take. You can also do some research by going out to different store locations or suppliers and everything else, but setting a budget.
Right.
So identifying the project, setting a budget. Then it's really finding the right contractor.
Right.
You know, and I work with vetted contractors that I've worked with time and time again, because the two most important criteria of any renovation of any project: on time and on budget.
Right.
You know, so unfortunately, a lot of people have had very bad situations of not on time, a lot of
Right.
delays, etc., and not on budget.
Right.
And most important criteria need to be met for any renovation project.
Right.
So really working with the best contractor. You know, when I'm a project manager, I get the contractor, I get all the quotes, I review them with my clients, and then it's the material selection that's
Right.
really critically important. Putting it all together,
Right.
making it a unified look, choosing, you know, from countertops to cabinets to flooring to, you know, backsplashes to paint colors, all of that, making the look all come together,
Right.
and the execution of it, actually installing it all. So,
Right. Some people I find can have a vision for that, and others they just can't see it right from the get-go on it.
right.
What would you recommend to somebody on how they can actually get a vision for what can be done, and how much it's going to cost them to do that.
Well, again, look at the internet.
Yeah.
With the, Pinterest especially is probably the number one site, that with House as well. You
Right.
can see projects across the entire world that have been done in
Right.
terms of innovations to get ideas.
Right.
But really, it's more important to put your wish list together to identify what exactly do you
It's a good idea.
right? And then the budget part is being realistic. And it's
Right.
really doing your homework, going online, taking a look at other projects, what other projects cost,
Right.
going to your local, Home Depot or whatever, just figuring out what's the new fridge going to cost, what's the new stove going to cost, what's the granite countertop going to cost.
Right.
The internet will give you ranges on a per square foot basis for kitchen cabinets or bathroom cabinets or bathtubs. So you
Right.
can put together a rough budget. Until you actually select those materials and work with a contractor, you won't know exactly until all of the quotes finally come in what they
Right.
is. But at least you'll get a rough idea what you're looking at.
Right. Sure.
So.
Yeah. Thank you. I find Mississauga is Mississauga, and a lot of the GTA area is getting older, and homes are older, and the chances of finding something that's all done up and ready to go is probably, especially close to the amenities that you want. If you want more of the downtown amenities and that kind of thing, you can usually find a house that you like, but it needs a lot of work, and so it's just going to be kind of more. I think the renovation business is probably going to be kind of pretty busy moving forward, because everything is getting old.
Yeah, and I think Statistics Canada has already identified Ontario as the renovation capital of the world.
Okay.
We do know we've historically done more renovations in Ontario than any other place in the world.
Right.
So it's to your point, it's going to get even bigger,
Right.
forward for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, kind of on a closing note, I guess, one of the things that I find in working with families on making a move is, especially with, seniors, or kind of that baby boomer crowd, maybe that's getting into the retirement years, is the kind of interaction with the family members, and kind of making it all work, when you got so many different, people that have, siblings and brothers and sisters, and that any thoughts or tips on, how to kind of make it all come together?
Patience.
Okay. That's a good one.
Communication and patience. Honestly, I think the hardest thing is people always have good intentions,
Right.
and I want to say, let's say we're talking about seniors transitioning, and they're moving from their house of 30 or 40 or 50 years.
Right.
They're looking at their next move, and it could be a retirement home, or it could be independent living, in a condo or whatever. Understanding what the person truly wants is
Right.
number one. Also being realistic about their needs is number two. Right. So the person themselves may not be realistic about their needs, but the siblings can also say, well, mom or dad, you really, can't do stairs anymore. I've seen you stumble, or I think it's better if, making suggestions back and forth, having an open dialogue.
Right.
And hopefully keeping the good intentions at bay.
Right.
Once communication has started happening, because again, you can argue a lot about what's right for who and what case and everything else. But in the end of the day, the person themselves has to make, if they can, the conscious decision of what they want and need for the next life transition.
Right.
Not everybody's going to be on board, but got to be the best of all worlds.
Right.
One of the greatest things now that's happening is in-home care.
Okay.
Even if someone is not ready to go to a retirement home, a lot of those services that would typically happen in a retirement home can come to them.
Right.
So we relieve the stress on the sons and daughters, the siblings or whatever, in terms of having to take care of, let's say, elderly parents in certain ways.
Right.
There's lots of options now that didn't exist in the past.
Right.
So I think, understanding what those options are, looking at a budget too, because
Right.
a lot of those options can be expensive, and
Right.
maybe the house does need to go up for sale, a smaller house purchase or another type of house purchase in order
Right.
to fund all
Right.
of the required services that are needed.
Yeah.
If, so there's got to be, again, realistic expectations, the sharing of
Mhm.
thoughts, but in the end of the day, respecting the individuals who are actually doing the life stage transition. It's
Right.
hard. I'm going to tell you it's
Yeah.
hard. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of emotion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
But, hopefully through open, honest conversation,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens.
And that even goes to, couples that are making a change, if they're empty nesters, their kids have moved out, or, maybe they still got one in university or something like that. But just the, getting an agreement between couples on, not only where they're going, but kind of what they want to, what their own interests are. And that I find is always part of the formula there too for, people that are making a life transition. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's difficult. Once we are creatures of habit. We are inherently creatures of habit. And when you've been in an environment and it's been your home for a period of time, it's hard to say, I want to pick up and go.
Right.
Unless you're used to it, unless people are constantly moving throughout their entire lives, then they're pretty used to the next stage. But for a lot of us, we buy our home, our first home or a second home, and we are in it for a long period of time before
Right.
we make another transition. So it is hard. It's a physical change. It's an emotional change. But again, it's really honest conversation and expectations and trying to be clear as to what you want and need for
Yeah.
the next, 10 years or 20 years or whatever.
Yeah. That's good. I find, so many of my clients do, consider, they have, worries about making a move. They find it daunting. But when we're all done, with everything, they feel like they've lightened their load, they've kind of dealt with things that they had not dealt with, or, some people are more organized than others, of course, but just generally speaking, once you go through everything and kind of keep the things you want and kind of deal with the rest of it, it's kind of like packing your bags a little smaller,
Well, and I call it a cleansing, because for a lot of people, people don't realize physical clutter is emotional clutter too.
Yeah.
Because I'll use the example of, you find something in a box, you open up the box, you find something like, oh God, oh yes, I remember this. Oh, I should really do something with this. And you close the box. And then 6 months later, you do the same thing again.
Yeah.
But when you're forced to make that decision after 20 years, it actually feels good to say, I finally did something with that thing that was in the box that I know I've had to deal with for a long period of time. So yeah, to your point, it relieves a lot of stress and a lot of emotional clutter.
Yeah, and it gives you confidence, right? It gives you confidence because you made decisions on things and just made
yeah, and
one step forward.
On that point, I always tell people, take the easiest room first. Like
Right.
honestly, the easiest room. Like, let's just go to the bathroom.
Right.
Because typically in the bathroom, there's toiletry products and stuff like that.
Right.
But very quickly, if you start one room and you're done and you feel good about it, well, that boosts your confidence to go to the harder next room. We may have to make more emotional decisions and things like that. So I always start people with the easiest, smallest task, and then we go from there. And it tends to snowball. It tends to pick up, and then people are making decisions a little bit easier because they feel good about what they've done. Yeah.
That's great. That's good. Any other parting words of advice for anybody that is thinking about making a move?
Number one, be proactive. Just be proactive. Start today. Go. I have what I call a 3 and 3 and 3 rule that I use myself because, again, I've lived in my house for over 20 years now. I accumulate. Everybody accumulates. But every 3 months, I go into at least 3 rooms and I try to find 3 things that I don't need anymore. And I find better homes for them.
Yeah.
And people will argue, well, is that relate to like artwork on the wall and, decorative items? Well, clearly not. We're not going to take away all the decorative items every year. But I guarantee you'll find 3 things every 3 months that you'll find a better home for. And that way, at least, you're managing the clutter. You're
Right.
definitely managing the accumulation. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good advice. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. So Laurie Usypchuk with, yeah, sorry.
It's actually Usypchuk.
Usypchuk. There we go. Okay, Laurie, thanks very much. And I'll post your contact information as well so that people can get in touch with you and consult with you on future services that could be helpful for them to get over the hump of getting the move done and moving forward with their lives. And thanks, Laurie, and we'll be in touch and have a great day. Thanks for your time.
You too. Thanks very
Bye
much.
for now.